This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. Black Friday Game Day on Prime is an epic day of live sports. It all starts at 9 a.m. Eastern with the Capital One Skins game. Then, Black Friday football returns when the Bears take on the Eagles at 3 p.m. And it culminates with the final night of Emirates NBA Cup group play with Bucks Knicks at 7 p.m. and Mavs Lakers at 10 p.m. Black Friday Game Day, only on Prime.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes. With hands-free capture on an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons podcast. This is the aftermath edition after the Monday after a win. It's been a while. Feels good. Feels good to talk about a win and the positive things that the Falcons did. They moved to 4-7. But what's interesting is they're only 2 games back in the playoff race in the NFC South, which has been there for the taking for the last 7-8 years. And it's been the Buccaneers that have come and take it. So after a Tampa start where they seem to be pulling out wins in the last minute of every game, they've run into some better competition. They've lost 3 in a row and are now sit at 6-5. You know, also 6-5, the Panthers. The Panthers are 6-5 too. So it's really more like a 2.5 game. You're back 2.5 right now because you've got the tiebreaker on both of those. But, you know, you can't exactly root for the Buccaneers still have to play the Panthers twice. You can't exactly root for the Buccaneers to beat the Panthers twice. You need a split there. You need a tie. You need a tie, and then you need to start winning some games. You won one yesterday. Got the Jets coming up, who fell to 2-9. Win some games, make things a little more interesting as we head towards December. We'll get into all that. Be a little more analytical today as we'll dive into some of the numbers from yesterday's game, some of the snap counts that were interesting, play sets, all of those things, and we'll analyze the game and go through any questions that you might have. That's why we go live. First off, before we get started, I want to say thank you to Nick for being a new member. Thank you, Nick. He, you can be like Nick by hitting the join button on YouTube or in the description on any of our shows. You can see where it says become a member and follow that link. Means a lot. Helps a lot through the dog days as Google's playing with their algorithm and Facebook doesn't want to monetize this. This is a big help to help us keep doing what we do. Wasn't just Nick, though. Little Falcon Boy also jumps in and becomes a new member, too. So shout out to y'all. Thank you for being a member of the Falcons podcast on my YouTube channel, which is just plain old Scott Kennedy. Let's get to some other comments. John Harrell is one of those members as well. He's got the little bird on his chat. Little Falcons says, good morning, Falcons family. Looked like Kirk was having fun in the Mooney touchdown. A lineman hosted Kirk in the air. I haven't seen that in a while. I made mention of that yesterday during the game or during the gut reaction podcast that it was just fun seeing that these guys were still playing for each other. You're not really ever sure, you know, with Kirk being the backup quarterback, he doesn't necessarily want to be there. He hasn't kicked up any controversy or anything during the offseason, since the offseason, really, when he, publicly asked for a move, and I don't blame him for that. Talked a little bit about, hiding an injury. I don't blame him for that either. He made a joke about that last week. He says, How you feeling? He's like, fine, but I wouldn't tell you guys until after the season anyway, probably. And that's just normal. Everybody's fine. You're supposed to hide your injury. It's expected to be playing injured and keep your mouth shut about it. So I don't have any problem with that. It's up to the coaches to say, here, you're obviously not right. We're going to sit you out for a little bit. And that was a mistake waiting too long last year. The athletes are going to do everything to play. That's why they've put in concussion protocol. They'll blink twice and say, yeah, I'm good, coach. Okay, get back in there. When they're not good. So, but you wasn't really sure how everybody was going to react, and seeing the celebration on that touchdown pass that really put a nail in the coffin in that game and got Darnell Mooney on the board. It was his first touchdown of the year after having a good connection with Cousins last year. And it was a good moment for the Falcons, John. Thank you very much. Michael Ronquillo coming in says, good morning, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. That's me. So it will be just me today. Nick is just doing Wednesday shows now, so it'll be just me on Mondays unless I add somebody or bring in a guest, which is still possible. Good morning, and appreciate you coming up from Arizona. Rusty says 2 games back, LOL. Pretty sure Seattle and LA will put the false hope back to bed in a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's they are just 2 games back. The Panthers, they're 6-5. They've got 2 games with the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers' schedule took a turn for the worse as they lost 3 straight. However, if you look at the rest of the Buccaneers' schedule now, it goes, let's see here. Gamecast, no, not that. The rest of the Buccaneers' schedule goes versus Cardinals, Saints, Falcons, 3 straight home games. And then they finish on the road at Panthers, at Dolphins, Panthers. They played 2 out of the last 3 games against the Panthers. For a neutral, that could be interesting if the Buccaneers and Panthers are still within a game of each other, playing 2 of the last 3 games. That, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Buccaneers go, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-2 at worst out of that group, which would put them 10-7, which is about where they've been here recently. 10-7 means the Falcons would have to go 5-0 to close out and lose in a tiebreaker. So actually, they'd be tied. They would be tied on there. So it would come to a second tiebreaker, which would probably have them lose the tiebreaker because they got swept by the Panthers. They would have a worse division record. So it's going to be tough if the Buccaneers are able to go 5-2. But it's nice to be able to at least have a flicker of, hey, let's see, maybe, who knows? But no, I'm not on here talking about the Falcons' path of the playoffs. That's for sure. Austin Freeze, good to see you. Says, good morning. Let's keep Kirk under center, maybe more 12 personnel when Drake returns. 2 running back sets, etc. Maybe Kirk can become Kirko change down the stretch. Love to see his alter ego return. Yeah, I think that's the idea. Is it Tegan Quintano? He'll probably see a little bit less time out there. When we look at the snap counts from this game, would you believe the wide receiver who saw the most snaps yesterday was David Sills? No offense to David Sills, but when he's your number 1 wide receiver out there, you've got problems at the wide receiver position. It was close. He had 39 snaps and Darnell Mooney had 37, but they rotated in a lot as the single wide receiver when there were 3 wide receiver sets. The barometer, Charlie Warner, that's what we call him. Who is the barometer of the Falcons' success? The Atlanta Falcons are now 4-0 when Charlie Warner plays 60% or more of the team's snaps. Charlie Warner played 61% of the snaps, 34 snaps, and the Falcons won. They are now 4-0 when he is at 60% or more, and they are 0-7 when he is under 60%. No, I'm not saying that Charlie Warner is the key to the win, but like I said, I think he's a barometer for success when you start talking about are the Falcons running the ball? Can they set up the run to set up the pass? Are they establishing the run, set up the pass? Are they converting third downs by running the ball? So, still not necessarily, even as the Falcons still just had 300 yards and were just 3 of 12 on third downs yesterday. So it wasn't exactly a banner day at the office, but the defense played well in spots. They played well when they had to. Let's put it that way. They stood up when they had to. It was a much more bend but don't break feeling yesterday. They were on the field for 80 plays yesterday, according to Pro Football Reference. ESPN had them for 78 plays for total plays, and the Falcons snap counts for Pro Football Reference was 80. They were on the field for 80. The Falcons ran 56 plays. The Saints ran 80. If you're not talking about the Saints, that's a problem out there. Definitely a problem. Want to say hello to some folks who've come in with some super chats. For sure. And Kirk had a good game running, good game, comma, and thanks for being a member, Mike. A good game, comma, running 13 set protects him. It not only protects him, when you've got a bunched group out there, it's hard to just break through and get to him. It protects the Falcons' lack of receivers. We talked about this when Kirk started his last game he started was against the Miami Dolphins. Drake wasn't playing either. So they go out there, and instead of running more Charlie Warner, they ran less Charlie Warner and more 11 personnel with Kyle Pitts as your only tight end, and your 3 wide receivers were Kadero Hodge, Darnell Mooney, and who am I forgetting in the middle? They're easy to forget. And David Sills. And David Sills were your 3 wide receivers. It was 34-3, and Kirk had 111 yards of passing. So rather than repeat that insanity, let's go big. Let's lean into the running game. This team was built to run. Let's lean into the running game. Let's go big. Falcons went big, and it was definitely more successful. So thank you, Mike. But going back to the comment from, let me see who said it here, from Austin. Yeah, you'll slide Drake into one of those spots. Make it sound like, oh, yeah, we'll just slide Drake in. Drake's the most important player on offense as far as I'm concerned, because the drop-off after wide receiver 1 is so big. That he slides in for Tegan Quintano and you're running more 12 personnel, hopefully more 2 tight end sets, more Charlie Warner and Kyle Pitts. Back to Darnell Mooney is now. Are you back, Darnell? Darnell, are you back? Because if he is, he's pretty damn good. Back to a good version of Darnell Mooney and Drake London. Okay, now we're talking, and now you're rotating in Bijan and Tyler. Get 70% of the snaps to Bijan and 30% to Tyler. Of the running back touches and stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, this makes more sense. You still have some problems out there, but it sounds better for sure as far as what you can then do moving forward. Jet Jones, thank you for the super. Appreciate you coming in. Says, good morning, Scott. Who do you prefer for our next coach? Let me hit a sip of coffee. This is actually my first sip of coffee of the day. Got the Lion Coffee, the Kona blend, and my God, is it good. I'm spoiled from our friend Patrick with Lion Coffee. Sent me a Kona blend, and holy cow. He says, who do you prefer as our next coach? Let's see. I think, if the Falcons go 3-3 in the next 6, they finish 7-10. That's fireable for me. I said 8-9 was your over-under on how safe this regime is going to be. 8 wins, I think you're going to be pretty safe. 8 wins, I'm not sure. I would lean towards Fires. 9-8, I think you're safe. 7-10, I think they're gone. So let's say you go 3-3 down the stretch, and you make a change here. I want an offensive-minded coach because, look at Todd Bowles down in Tampa. He loses his offensive coordinator every year. Look at Matt Ryan, had a new offensive coordinator every year because Matt Ryan ran some pretty good offenses. He was a good quarterback and they were successful and they'd get another job. You offensive coaches get hired, they're first on the list. If your head coach is an offensive coach, he's running the system. You got Andy Reid, Sean Payton, just 2 off the top, Sean McVay, 3 off the top of my head, who are always sending out coaches and they talk about their coaching tree. So where can you look? You can look at defensive head coaches with good offenses. Right now, is that Dan Quinn? No, not necessarily. What offensive coordinators are actually running the show and don't necessarily have a Superman quarterback? Tom Brady got Charlie Weiss and Josh McDaniels lots and lots and lots and lots of money so that they could fail as head coaches somewhere else because they weren't good enough. So I worry about having that superstar. Nathaniel Hackett had Aaron Rodgers. Well, without Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett was the only coach in a couple of decades to get fired for performance in his first year. That was Aaron Rodgers' personal coach. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was the reason there. So this is a long lead, Jet Jones, to say for me, I look at a guy like Clint Kubiak up in Seattle with Sam Darnold having a lot of success. He's got my attention. He's somebody out there that's got my attention. So that would be, I would want to, and if I'm going to give a coach $10 million a year on a 5-year deal and guarantee him $50 million, I can hire $1 million worth of private investigators and background and research to dig into, okay, are there any skeletons in this closet? And you should do that for anybody you're about to make an investment like that into, including your first round picks or free agents, and et cetera. I need to have a research team. I want an CIA, FBI guy on staff to do those background work. So I would dig very deep into Kubiak and see if there's any reason he shouldn't be on the list, because on the surface right now, those are what I'm looking for. Who's running the offense? Who's doing it schematically, not necessarily personnel-wise, because you don't get to bring that personnel with you. Who's doing it schematically, and who's having a lot of success? Right now, Clint Kubiak ticks those initial boxes for me. It's kind of like the look test. Talk about, I go to a football camp and I'm scouting guys and I watch a combine. Here comes this 6'3" wide receiver. He goes out and runs a 4.48. Okay, he passed. Check. Now let's find out if he can play football. Now I want to know more. My initial benchmarks are success with a non-superstar quarterback, schematically successful Kubiak. I want to know more. So he's the guy I'm looking at right now. Jet Jones, appreciate the comments and the super for sure. Let me roll down some of the comments here. Keith Robbins, thank you for being a member. Unfortunately, I had to work and didn't watch the game. How did Kirk do? Kirk played well.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. What do you bring to a holiday party? Simple, a bottle of Casamigos. Because nothing gets the party started like a Casamigos margarita, which isn't just for summer. In fact, it's the perfect pour all year round. Casamigos is the gift that always feels right, because anything goes with my Casamigos. Please drink responsibly. Imported by Casamigos Spirits Company, White Plains, New York. Casamigos Tequila, 40% alcohol by volume.
It got off to a little bit of a slow start. It was run, third and long, drop back, and get sacked. That was kind of the first 2 or 3. And then some play action started working in. Once play action started working in, and what also opened it up, it counted as a run, but it was a swing pass out wide to Bijan Robinson where he slips a tackle out wide and get him outside. And the 13 personnel, one of the problems with the 13 personnel, everything's so tight. So you're big inside, which is fine, but the Saints are then crowding a box. There's not a lot of room in there. Well, you want Bijan Robinson in space. So they tighten everything up and swing a ball out to Bijan Robinson. He goes for 32 yards in space. Nice. Little play action and a beautiful little fade route on a fade pass from Kirk Cousins on a wheel to Kyle Pitts. And it was a great throw. And he picks up 23 yards, and they went from 50 yards to 75 yards. All of a sudden, okay, things are opening up. And let me see. I always screenshot the halftime stats because it's the only time I can ever find them. At halftime, they finished with 191 yards. So they only had 110 in the second half. Hell, they only touched the ball once, it seemed like. In the second half, they held the Saints to 95 yards, and the rushing was a nice, even 91. A big part of that was the Bijan Robinson swing pass that was just a little backwards, so it counted as a run. But that was basically a swing pass screen and 100 rushing yards. And then I didn't have the Yeah, I do. The time of possession. Wow, what a change. The time of possession was 19-11 in favor of the Falcons in the first half. And then they only touched the ball for 2 minutes in the next 19 minutes. So that switched early. But Kirk played well. He did. He played well. And, what's changed with this? Does Kirk have a chance to be the quarterback next year? Do you keep him around until Michael Penix Jr. is healthy and looking good? Not at $57 million, and he's not taking a pay cut for it, and you don't want to restructure to pay him more money. Now, I just don't see Cousins doing that. I think he would rather be, okay, either you pay me what I'm under contract for or you cut me and I'll be a free agent again. I just can't imagine him saying, yeah, I'll take a pay cut. You owe him, he's got a $35 million dead cap hit. You want to pay him $35 million next year instead of taking a dead cap hit? It's an option if he redid his contract. I think it's very slim that would happen. I think best case scenario, and you'd have to cut him, you wouldn't even get a comp pick. But you want Kirk to play well down the stretch for a myriad of reasons. Maybe you can get a trade and they'll take some of that contract. But I think I think what ends up being the final here for Kirk Cousins, he gets cut. They either take $35 million dead next year, or they designated post June 1, split it across two seasons, and at minimum you're saving $22 million next year. So did Kirk look good? Yes, he did. Did he look like a $57 million quarterback? No, he did not. Especially he'll be 38 next year. A 38-year-old $57 million quarterback? No, he looked good. For especially for what was out there, for all the people saying Kirk's going to show something, he did, but his opportunity is still going to be limited by who he was throwing the ball to. It's a tough group out there. So let's move on a little bit. I saw Real Talk Gentleman 614 has just checked in. I see you're a member too, so thank you very much. So what's your take on the medical staff and how they're doing with handling injuries? Could you see changes next season? It's interesting, that's for sure. When Billy Bowman gets hurt in 2 walkthroughs, you see some of these guys that just aren't coming back. What's the whole story? We don't have all the information, so I'm just going to ask questions with you, and I'm going to bring up more of these questions. I have concerns. I don't have answers for you, Real Talk, so apologies. But I have speculation based on historical knowledge and educated guesses. What happened with Storm Norton? Why aren't you getting him a better diagnosis in the offseason so he's not having ankle surgery in August? Why is that not happening in February? Why isn't it happening in March? He didn't get hurt until later. I don't remember that being the case, though. I don't remember him being out there I remember this lingering from OTAs. I could be wrong. It's very possible. I am live. So I don't remember Storm Norton getting hurt, at the end of July. I remember him being out and not being out there at all for training camp. No problem with Darnell Mooney. He broke a collarbone. He hasn't quite come back from it yet. Why? I don't know. That's a 4-week injury. They did not IR him. He missed the first 2 games, I think. Okay, what about the next 9? How come this has taken so long? Legs are good. He should be in decent game shape by Thanksgiving, for goodness sakes. Troy Anderson, who knows? Who knows with Troy Anderson? One of the questions I have is some of the usage. You always say if you've got a chance of making it worse, then you don't want to play him. Well, Zach Harrison had missed 2 games in a row. And then he goes out there with injury. Then he goes out there and plays a career high in snaps against the Colts. A career high in snaps against the Colts. Guess what? Guess what happens the next week? Injured reserve. That's a bad look, y'all. That's a bad look. He's injured, then he plays a career high in snaps, and then he's on injured reserve. Fellas, ladies and gentlemen, that's a bad look. So I have not been overly impressed with the availability of the Atlanta Falcons players this year. Also knowing that guys stay hurt longer when your team sucks. It's just the way it is. You know what? Shoulder's not feeling so good today. We've lost 5 in a row, coach, and don't think I'm going to make it today. But if I've got a player breathing down my neck and we're 7-3 and heading for the playoffs, shoulder's feeling okay. Again, go back to Kirk Cousins. You're 6-3 and I've got competition behind me. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm feeling pretty good. They were 0-7. Kirk Cousins probably wouldn't have played after that Saints hit. So injuries seem to linger longer and happen more often when your team is in the tank. So there's part of that going on as well, real talk. Appreciate the super chat and for being a member. That means a lot. Let's see. Larry talking about I'm still not impressed with how our fan base want to just be over with MP9 despite him being injury-free for almost 3 years now since 2022. I wouldn't say it's a fan base. I think, there's a vocal minority out there and there's people that aren't going to like anybody no matter what. You haven't made it unless you've got haters. You're not big enough. If you're big enough, you're going to have haters. But it is concerning that 5 of 7 full seasons that the man has played have ended in season-ending injury. That's concerning. It's also concerning when you've had your 3rd ACL surgery. I'm concerned about him. I mean, he may have knee replacements when he's, 45 years old. I'm concerned about him long-term. I'm concerned about him seeing shadows out there and being shell-shocked. It already looks like he's hesitant to run. He goes out there and runs a 4.48 at his pro day for the scouts, and they're texting, this guy's not going to last very long. Well, he doesn't play like he's a 4.48. But he's going to get a chance. He's on a rookie contract. Falcons don't have a first-round pick. He'll be the starting quarterback next year, and he'll get a chance to get it done. Would I want to have a good backup on this team with Michael Penix as my starting quarterback? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Harry, good to see you over on Facebook. He says, we saw a lot of David Sills because Kirk Cousins working with him a lot on the scout team. I think it had more to do with, of the guys that we talked about, he's the best blocker. The guys that are in there at wide receiver, and I don't know that even a 3rd wide receiver even saw much time. I've got the Colts up because I wanted to bring up a point on the snap counts in that game. Darnell Mooney had 37, and then the next one was Dylan Drummond at 27%. So Dylan Drummond actually had the 3rd most snaps from wide receiver, but it was basically just Darnell and David Sills switching position and when they would run one wide receiver sets. And Sills is a good blocker, and they needed him out there to block. And he had a good game. Congratulations on his touchdown pass. But we're seeing a lot of David Sills because the Falcons don't have a lot of other options. That's what it boils down to. Bernie, let's see here. Burmy Falcon. Morning all. It's a better Monday than it's been in recent weeks, but still not getting excited. Just cannot see us going on a winning streak. Season still over. Yeah, I'm not hitting the playoff thing. I thought it was interesting, that the Buccaneers have lost 3 in a row, and wow, you're really only 2 games back. For me, that's almost more of a what could have been, the missed opportunity. And when people say, the Falcons have missed this window when the NFC South has been so bad, this is what they're talking about. To have such a mediocre conference, Tampa Bay, all 4 teams, I think, in the 2010s went to the Super Bowl. The Saints, Falcons, Panthers, and Buccaneers. In the 2010s, I think all 4 of them went to the Super Bowl. None of them have been to the Super Bowl in a while, since Brady and the Buccaneers. And that was still a little flukish because it was Brady and the Buccaneers. So the division's been down. It's been there for the taking, and you're still 8 years without the playoffs. Am I excited for the rest of the season? I love football. I love watching young players. I'm excited to watch James Pierce Jr., who is now 2nd in the NFL among rookies with 3.5 sacks. Second, I wrote it down. 4 sacks even. 3.5 in the last 3 weeks. He's got 9 quarterback hits credited from Pro Football Reference, 6 of them in the last 3 weeks. I said second in the NFL. I'm excited to watch him. Well, who's first? Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker is first with 5 sacks, despite only playing 9 games. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to watch that. I'm excited to watch. I want to say Billy Bowman, but he ain't going to be back. I'm excited to watch Xavier Watts out there. I'm excited to watch Brandon Dorlus have a really good game and be a disruptor in the middle of the defense. I always like watching Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier play football, and hopefully Drake will be back there. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch those young players play. Win or lose, I like watching those guys. At least when you've got a young core and you're bad, you've got something to look forward to the future. You know, these guys could finish. We said at the beginning of the season, what would you consider a good season from your rookie pass rushers? I think I said somewhere between 10 and 12 sacks. Well, they're at 9. It's hard. It's hard to put up numbers as a rookie pass rusher. It's really hard. And they're at 9 already. And there's, between the two of them, there's a combined 12 games left. You know, if they can get 6 more sacks and hit 15, I'm excited. So on that, John says Charlie Warner is a pass-catching machine. I love watching tight ends in the backfield. It's diabolical. Just, you got 260-pound guys trying to be tackled by 200-pound guys. And it's the physical nature of one of the reasons we love this game. God help us. But I love watching the fullbacks and the tight ends clear the first level of defense and in the backfield. And it hurts my heart a little bit that we've never really gotten to see that from Kyle Pitts on that. Terry coming back in, he says the Falcons need so many draft picks to get this thing back on track. We really need to upgrade both offensive tackle positions. On a positive note, Dorlus looks like a keeper, but Onyemata is cooked. Onyemata had a couple of good plays, but down to down, he should be, relegated to a Calais Campbell role, 30% of the snaps. And I think he was at 50. It was a much better rotation, Terry, this week. Y'all heard me when the Falcons played the Colts, I was pretty critical of them. You cut Taquan Graham, you put LaCale London on the inactive list, and then Sam Roberts gets hurt. Well, you ended up in that game with David Onyemata playing 70% of the snaps, Rook playing 81% of the snaps, Zach Harrison playing a career high 47 snaps and not getting to play anymore, then hitting injured reserve. This game, the rotation was much, much better. And part of that was Leonard Floyd was back, so I could use different fronts because Leonard Floyd's been really good this year. But you had, let me see here, start with the defense. Rook played the most snaps, and he played a lot of snaps because they played 80 plays. But it was a good rotation. He only played 54% of the snaps instead of 80 like he did against the Colts. Dorlus was 52% of the snaps, and Onyemata was third at 51% of the snaps. And then you got a nice rotation from Walker, Pierce, Ebiketie, and Floyd, and then from those guys as well. So I saw some 4-3, which we hadn't seen a ton of, with a legit 4-3 with 2 defensive ends in their hands and the rubber pellets, and then 3 linebackers. We've seen the nickel where a safety the nickel will walk up and plays basically an outside linebacker, but it hasn't been an actual linebacker out there doing it. Not regularly. We may have seen 3 linebackers in certain sets, but not a true 4-3 on 1st and 10. This was the first time. Contavious Street and LaCale London combined for 44 snaps as well. So it was a much, much better rotation. Yes, the Falcons need to put some investments into right tackle. They're going to need a replacement for Jake Matthews as well. And they need 2 wide receivers. They need 2 cornerbacks. They need at least 1 more linebacker. Let's see. What are we missing here? You're probably going to need a tight end. I said linebacker already. Safety. We can have the Jesse Bates conversation. Do you want to do another restructure with him? He's got a $25 million cap hit next year. He'll be 29 years old, and he's playing okay. He's a good player. But, I'll go back to the Kirk Cousins situation. Some Kirk Cousins fan came into my comments and was an a-hole, and I banned him. Now, if he had just made the comment, I think Cousins played better than you're getting him credit for. there's a chance he could be back next year, I'd have that conversation. I'd say not at $57 million. Jesse Bates is a good player, will be a good player. He's a safety in a non-premium position with a $25 million cap hit next year. Guys, I'd really be thinking about trying to move him. I'd be thinking about trying to trade him in the offseason, and he's one of my favorite players, don't get me wrong. $25 million for a 30-year-old safety on a team that do we expect to be pushing for the playoffs next year? That's a luxury, fellas, y'all, ladies and gentlemen. That's a luxury player. I would think about trying to move Jesse Bates. See if I could get $10 to $12 million back in salary cap on that one. Let's move down here a little bit. Want to check here. Mike is back. He says, has Raheem lost the locker room? Thanks for the super. And again, thanks for being a member, Mike. I think it's exactly the opposite. Going through our pictures, what we are able to use for like the show, for example, or for our websites. USA Today has a service called Imagine, little inside baseball there. Who cares? I do a search on Raheem Morris because I wanted to use his picture for this. And there is him with Chris Lindstrom in a full-on embrace. Chris Lindstrom is without a doubt one of the leaders of this team. And Raheem Morris is well-liked. And I think the team will feel bad that when he gets fired, I think the team will feel bad about it. Has Zach Robinson lost the confidence of the offense? Yeah. They talk it up nicely, but I think that is a bigger problem as far as effort and attitude goes. Where Raheem, he's well liked, and that isn't always necessarily a good thing. It was nice to see him. Who got into Felipe Franks? Jamal Agnew finally has a positive contribution, and Felipe Franks goes out there and gets a personal foul. Raheem was pissed. Good. You can't always be there, but it's like being a parent. Yes, I want to get along with my kids. And yes, I feel bad when I have to tear into their butts for them not pulling their end of things. But it's got to be done. You're the coach. It goes back to this. Well, Michael Penix is in the pistol all the time because he feels more comfortable in the pistol. I don't care. You're going to get fired because he's more comfortable in this. No. You spend an entire offseason making sure that he's doing what's going to be best for the team. I don't buy that. I will not buy that a professional athlete that runs a 4.5 40 can't go under center. I will not take that as an excuse. Will not. Do I think Raheem Morris has lost the locker room? No. On the contrary, I saw a team that played hard, played together, and celebrated, more importantly, celebrated together their wins, and not just the game win. I'm talking about, a win as a Kirk Cousins post pattern to Darnell Mooney for his 290th touchdown that tied Johnny Unitas for 17th all time, and it was Mooney's first touchdown. I saw David Sills getting loved up by his teammates for his first touchdown ever. I saw them celebrating their wins, individual and collective team wins throughout the game. This team's still together. They are. I don't know how good they are, but they're still together. So that one's one I'm not too worried about. Tony saw this too. I saw 680 the fan saying the Falcons should get Monken as head coach and Stenson Bennett as quarterback until Penix is ready next year. I'm all in on this. I think that might have been Matt Chernoff again. I don't know how much Matt has changed throughout the years, probably a lot, but when he came to Atlanta, I used to call him Guy Talk TV. It's like he came from the E channel. He didn't know much about sports. He would talk pop culture. And I was, doing a show there and get to meet him. I'm like, dude, I don't care about Lindsay Lohan or whatever it is you're talking about. I don't care about Guy Talk TV. I'm here to talk sports. Monken would be on my list of guys that I'd be interested in. Stetson Bennett has one more year on his contract. You're going to be looking for backup quarterbacks next year. He'd be cheap, but do you really want to trade for Stetson Bennett? He's got one more year on his deal out in LA, I believe. Do I want to trade for Stetson Bennett? No, I don't. Little Falcon Boy, thanks for being a member, new member. What do you think of new kicker Zane Gonzalez? Also, have you noticed how he touches his hair 20 times before he puts his helmet on the kick? No, I haven't noticed it. It must be kind of a nervous tick whatever it is, it's working because he was, I labeled it the Great Zane yesterday, which goes back to Morton Anderson. You might be too young to remember Morton Anderson, but Morton Anderson was at one point, the all-time leading scorer for both the Saints and the Falcons. And he was Danish, so he was the Great Dane. And Zane, it was a game-turning type of moment when the Saints turn the ball over. Falcons get great field position, run the ball twice, I think, into the middle of the line of scrimmage, go nowhere, and then Kirk takes a sack. Like, dude, you just knocked us out of field goal range. And up steps Zane and calmly just strokes it through like he's, practicing a 3-foot putt, a 56-yard field goal. Nice. Remember how we've talked about most teams, once they're at 55 and in, they consider that field goal range, and the Falcons have basically been 40 and in, and what a difference that makes. Kicked another 41-yarder, kicked his 2 extra points, kicked a 54-yarder. But after that 56-yard field goal to put the Falcons up 3-0, Marquise Williams' special teams units blow another gasket, and here comes Tolston up the sideline, and Zane contains him. I don't think he made the tackle, but he contains him long enough to make the tackle. Touchdown saving play right there from Zane after going up 3-0. The Falcons defense holds. They get a sack, and their kicker misses the first of, I think, their first field goals. He missed a couple. Missed his first field goal as well. And instead of being 7-3 Saints, it was still 3-0 Falcons, and the Falcons had the ball. Those are the games within the game, the little things that don't necessarily show up on he kicked a 56-yard field goal. Man, that was also a game-changing play he made on the next play. Unless I'm completely off on that, and I could have sworn it was Zane Gonzalez on that play. Scott, you're out of your mind. That was Bradley Pinion kicking off, and it was Pinion that did that. I could have sworn. I'm doubting myself, but it was a big play, and I thought that was Zane also. What's up with Nick Nash? He's behind Dylan Drummond right now. What's up with Casey Washington? Remember all the hype that there was around Casey Washington earlier, and fastest guy on the team? No, he's not all that fast. Relatively speaking, going to take the top off, and man, did he disappear. Nick Nash, he's behind Dylan Drummond, and he's behind Kaderl Hodge for special teams. Kaderl's a really good special teams player, so he doesn't get that. And when you're only playing a 1 wide receiver set, 2 at most, then I don't necessarily need to elevate another wide receiver on there. Marie says, why it takes us 3 times to find a kicker? I don't know. It's at least 3.
Don't chew on that, Max.
Cooper loves that chew too.
Oh, now he's into Cooper's food. Wow, he is loving it. What do you feed Cooper?
Blue Buffalo Life Protection Formula. He never leaves a crumb. I love it because it's made with high-quality protein, nutrient-rich fruits and veggies, and wholesome whole grains.
Looks like we're switching to Blue.
Blue Buffalo foods are made with the superior ingredients your dog needs to thrive. Can your dog food say that? Visit feedbluefood.com to learn more.
As a contractor, I don't pay for materials I don't use. So why would I pay for stuff I don't need in my mobile plan? That's why my Biz plan from Verizon Business is so perfect. Now I can choose exactly what I want, and I only pay for what I need.
Right now, with my Biz plan, get our best price, as low as $25 a line. Visit Verizon.com/business to get started today. New lines only. Price per month with 5+ lines. Includes auto pay and paper-free billing and promotional discount. Taxes, fees, economic adjustment charge. Applicable add-ons, prices, and terms apply. Guarantee applies to base monthly rate and stated discounts only. Add-on prices additional. Offers in January 5th, 2026.
I don't know, but it shows you, again, it shouldn't be as hard as the Falcons have made it. Find a guy with some experience out there. The guy they brought in, he'd kicked, 6? The kid from Parkview or wherever he was, he'd kicked 6 field goals in the NFL. You found a guy out there who's got a game winner for, the Washington Commanders in the playoffs. That was Zane Gonzalez. Where was he to begin with? Thank you, Lakitu. 94. It was Gonzalez. I thought it was. I was almost positive it was Zane, but then it gets in your head a little bit, and you're like, now I'm doubting myself, and I'm live. So thank you. And then Byron says, I think it was Bradley Pinion. I thought it was Zane. Either way, thank you for making that play. I thought it was Zane Gonzalez, but Zane as a kicker alone was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. Just smooth as silk. Easy peasy. If he's got those nervous ticks before the game, they certainly do not show up. Do not show up. D'Angelo Terrell, what's wrong with Kyle Pitts? How is the number 4 overall draft pick keep dropping balls? I want to take back a little bit. I want to walk back some of what I said yesterday. And what I said yesterday was the Kyle Pitts countdown is on. He's got 6 games left as an Atlanta Falcon, and then he will be moved. Then they won't re-sign him and hope to get a comp pick. What I want to walk back was the compensation. Kyle Pitts is a middle of the pack. He's a jag. He's just a guy right now. He'll be nice for 30 yards, 500 or 30 catches, 500 or 600 yards, maybe receiving. That's average. What I want to walk back is tight ends are making a lot more money than they used to. I think I said yesterday, that's $5 million money. No, it's not anymore. He'll get a decent contract as just being a guy. The average contract right now for tight ends, number 1 is George Kittle up at 19. So the ceiling is not that high compared to quarterbacks at 60 million, wide receivers at 30 plus, edges at 40. They're not at the offensive tackles in the 30s. They're not up there. The ceiling's not as high. But if I go down to the average of 15, the 15th highest paid contract average in the NFL right now is $10 million. And that doesn't count the rookie contracts. It doesn't count, Trey McBride, who's, it does, but I was looking at cap hits. Sorry. The average salary is 10. Kyle Pitts is a little bit below that because he's still on his rookie contract at 8.9. So if he gets a multi-year deal, it'll probably be in the range of $12 million a year. If someone really likes his opportunity, he could be at, $13 million a year. Would someone sign him to a a 3-year, $39 million deal with 25 guaranteed? That's $13 million a year. That puts him at 13 would put him at 7th ahead of Jake Ferguson. But at 12 million, you're at 11 with Dalton Schultz. So there's a big difference. So even 12, let's call it 36 million, 3 years, $36 million, 25 guaranteed. That's a 2-year deal with $25 million guaranteed at 12 million a piece. That puts you at 11 and 12. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for Pitts. So I want to walk that back, that I think he'll be in the upper middle range will be his next contract in that 11 to 12, 13, 11 to 13 range. And I don't want the Falcons to spend it. I would rather get another $10 million wide receiver in. I'd rather get 2 more $5 million linebackers. I'd rather get a cornerback in here for $10 million because he'd be the second highest paid corner on the team. I'd rather beef up the offensive line. A $10 million reserve offensive tackle is a lot of money. Then have Kyle Pitts back taking up $10 to $12 million of my salary cap. That's where I am on him right now. Let's see. David says the Saints secondary is why Sills and Mooney had decent games. Yeah, they were 23rd against the pass coming in and started cheating a little bit, which is good. That's why you want to run the ball. That's the formula for the Atlanta Falcons. Establish a run, play action, deep shots. Great. And I've got big wide receivers. I should be able to get my 3rd and shorts through to Drake London. You know what I'm waiting to see? I mean, they talk about and Raheem, and he's live. Trust me, I've stuck my foot in my mouth at least 5 times already today. When he was live, they asked him about Darnell Mooney in that play, and he says, we've been setting that play up all year, which makes it sound like, we've been holding it. No, that's not what he meant. That's not what he meant. But what I would like to see, these guys are jumping the 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 short routes to Drake London. How about a slant and go, man? How about a quick out and up? I'm going to go out and up. You want to talk about setting up a play all year on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1? They're jumping the routes to Drake London. Single coverage out wide, stacking the box up the middle, and then they're jumping the route. Little sluggo. Let's just little sluggo and just throw it up there and have that cornerback. It's going to be an illegal use of hands, pass interference or something, or it's going to be a touchdown. That's a play. Boogeyman coming in. If we let Pitts walk, do you think we could re-sign Tyler? I think Tyler, let's take this average contract rankings from tight end to running back. I think Tyler is one of the 20 best running backs in the NFL. I might be biased. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm wrong. Ironically, on average contract, number 20 is Bijan Robinson because he's on his rookie contract. Number 17 is Tony Pollard at 7.5. So if you think he's even an average running back, average starting running back in the NFL, he's going to be $8 million a year. That's the average right now. So I think he gets, and I've said 100 times, I think he gets, he triples his lifetime earnings next year. So he's, after 4 years, Tyler Algier has made $4 million. I think he gets 8 next year. I don't think you can really afford to do that, Boogeyman. I don't think I can put another big contract to have 2 top 15 paid guys at running back on this team. I just don't, especially for a reserve. You know, the Falcons have been pretty good historically about finding running backs. Bijan's going to be there. You don't need to have an $8 million backup. Now, let's have the discussion of Christian McCaffrey was traded for a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. What about signing Tyler Algier for 7.5 or 8 and trading Bijan Robinson so you don't have to pay him $20 million in 2 years and getting a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in return? Or, you know, a 1st and a 3rd. That's kind of the equivalent. A 1st and a 5th. That's a conversation you got to have. Again, is this going to be a playoff team next year? Bijan's a piece you want to build around, though. I don't want him going anywhere. Jesse is 29 and a $25 million cap hit. Kyle Pitts, I don't think, is a net positive to this team at $12 million. Those guys I'm ready to see go. And again, so better not trade Bijan. No, I don't see that happening. But again, if you want to talk about building your team, now here's what I want to say, and I should mark this because I want to turn this into a separate video at 48.5 minutes. Let's say there's a clean sweep this offseason and I've got a new general manager come in. One of the best, they bring in a new coach, new general manager, they're going to get some leeway, right? It's not going to be a win now like they felt this year coming in. You know, Terry Fontenot's in his 5th year. I can't have 5 losing seasons in a row. I got to go for it this year. Let's trade away my first. If I'm a new general manager coming in, I trade what I can trade. I'm listening for Jesse Bates, my older players, and then I'm probably sitting out the first round of free agency. I'm going to have some money, but I'm going to probably sit out the first round of free agency. What happens if Caden Ellis doesn't re-sign? He's worth a comp pick. What about Leonard Floyd? He's a free agent. He's worth a comp pick. What about Tyler Algier? Again, he's worth a comp pick. Kyle Pitts, he's worth a comp pick. If I sit out the first round of free agency, the first 2 weeks of free agency, I could maybe end up with 4 comp picks in 2027 if those guys walk. Now, of those 4 guys, the one I definitely want back is Caden Ellis. He's going to double his money too. That was a bargain of a deal that Terry Fontenot signed him to. It's 3 years, 21.5. He's probably going to get 15 next year. He's going to double his money, and he's pushing 32. I think he is 30 right now. I want to re-sign him, but that doesn't count against your comp formula. And it doesn't mean you can't sign free agents. It's only if you sign them in the first 2 weeks, I believe, is when it it cancels out your comp pick deals. If you lose a free agent in the first 2 weeks, you are eligible for a comp pick if they qualify. If you sign someone in the first 2 weeks, then that would count against anybody you lose, depending on the level of free agents. That would be something that I would seriously think about, knowing that I could rebuild, maybe get 3 extra draft picks in 2027, knowing I'm going to be short in 2026, and I'm probably not a playoff team anyway, that I might try and do it that way. John Harrell says, we need draft picks. Yeah, and all the trade ups we talk about, one of the things we never really talk about is, another 5th rounder was lost by the Atlanta Falcons under this administration when they signed Kirk Cousins for the tampering rules, which was kind of a bogus rule, but it was still a rule. It's purely Atlanta Falcons to have the losing a 5th round pick the year for arranging travel for guys before you were actually allowed to talk to them. And then the next year they get rid of that rule, but you're still gonna lose your 5th round pick. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds Falcon-y right there. 5th round picks in Falcons history, Atlanta Falcons draft rep. Let me look this one up here real quick. Falcons draft rep. What's a 5th round pick even worth? Let's see. Let's go through a couple of 5th round picks here. JD Bertrand, and this is just the picks, not talking about, I'm not going to retrograde because there are people picked first and later that have become, you could have Tom Brady. No, we're not going to be stupid like that. Traded away the 5th round pick in 2023, traded away in 2025. So they don't have many. Tyler Algier was a 5th round pick. Taquan Graham, serviceable pro, was a 5th round pick. Didn't have one in 2020. In 2019, Kadri Ollison was a running back. Jordan Miller at corner. Didn't have a 5th round pick in 2018. Maybe that's the problem. You need more 5th round picks. DeMonte KZ, remember him? Brian Hill, running back. Eric Saubert was a decent tight end. He's played in 108 games. He was another 5th round pick. Grady Jarrett was a 5th round pick. Ricardo Allen, he's played in 91 games as a 5th round pick. Stanley Mapanga, defensive end, he played in 26. Bradley Ewing, Jonathan Massaquoi, he's a Gwinnett kid, if I remember right. But again, some of your depth comes there, and you're just losing those as well. So there's been some good picks, but when you're trading up and drafting in the top 10, you're supposed to have some good picks. You need more of those guys. That's how you have depth. That's how you have free agent money when you've got half your team on rookie contracts, and that hasn't been handled particularly well. And Corey, yes, a 5th round pick here, arguably one of the best draft picks of all time when it comes to hits on there. So we're at 53 minutes. This is called a 2-minute warning. And Maurice, people love to say like Tom Brady. So there's a reason there's only been one like him. Well, shoot, I one of the phrases I use, because y'all know I was director of scouting for Scout for a decade. So I did college football recruiting and 2,500 kids. And I always said with a small enough sample size, I'll prove anything you want to prove. I can go get Kurt Warner stocking shelves. Why would I even bother drafting? I should be looking at my local Walmart for talent. With a small enough sample size. Yeah, and Tom Brady was he a seventh round pick? Well, shoot, that's where I should look for Brock Purdy. Those guys come around once in a while, and it's why you like taking more shots. It's why I don't like giving up my picks, because people develop at different stages of their lives. I like having more players. I like having more shots, because if I've got a 50% chance with a first rounder to hit, and a 40% chance to hit with a second rounder, well, if I have 2 second rounders, I've got a better chance than a first rounder. That's the way I think. And thank you, Corey. I couldn't remember if Brady was a 6th or a 7th. I knew he was late day 3. He gets thrown out there all the time. Terry says, would you draft Carson Beck in the 2nd round? I wouldn't draft Carson Beck in the 7th round. That's how I feel about Carson Beck. I think he's a UDFA type. But could be wrong. One of the other sayings I like to have is, let me be wrong before you tell me I'm wrong. You're going to be wrong about Carson Beck. Okay, maybe. Yeah, I'll concede that. I wouldn't draft Carson Beck in the 7th round. I don't think he's a pro quarterback. We'll see. We'll have been wrong a zillion times. The only way not to be wrong is to not make prognostications. But I'm right a lot more often than I'm wrong when it comes to these things. It's how I've turned this into a decent living on this, but we'll see. We'll see. AJ says, Tyler Linderbaum, center for the Ravens. He's a free agent this offseason. If the Ravens don't tag him, and they won't, would he be worth bringing in over Newsel? Newsel isn't bad, but Linderbaum is better. AJ, we get back into non-premium position and spending a bunch of money on this. They will not tag him because offensive linemen all get wrapped into one position when it comes to franchise tags. So you take the top 5 highest paid offensive linemen, and that's how you come up with this price. Well, if I come up with offensive linemen, let me change this since I'm already right here, average contract. And if I change it to OL, I'm not going to find a center in the top, God knows how many, maybe even on the first page. The highest paid center, I'm down to 35. Creed Humphrey at $18 million. So if I used a tag, and that's 35th, if I used a tag, I would take 28 million, 28 million, 28 million, 28 million, 26 million, and take an average of 5, which is basically, let's see, let me do the math on that, 28 million. So if I used a tag, I would make him double the highest paid center. So you don't tag centers. You almost never tag guards. I don't remember it happening because they get wrapped in with the offensive tackles. So they wouldn't tag him. But going back to the question with Tyler Linderbaum, I don't want a $20 million center. That one of the problems the Falcons have is they've got their money wrapped up in non-premium positions. They've got a $20+ million guard. They've got a $20+ million safety. They've got a number 4 overall pick at tight end. They've got a number 8 overall pick at running back. What about corner? And they've changed that here in the last few drafts, to their credit. Number 1 pick at wide receiver, number 1 pick at quarterback, 2 number 1 picks at edge. Yes. Offensive tackle, premium positions. So I don't want them spending a bunch of money on luxury positions, on non-premium positions, until they have the premium positions that aren't bargain bin, so to speak, on that one. So that's where I think on that. But we're just about to get out of here. Talking about he's better than Peyton Thorne. That's not a competition. It's better than Jackson Arnold too. Peyton Thorne is the quarterback play at Auburn has been pretty dreadful. Now Deuce Knight kid, if they don't ruin him, he's pretty good. So on that note, let's see here. AJ, so I agree there, but what the tackle is worth, their salt hits free agency. Was Trent Williams or McGlinchey the last one to hit free agency? I'm not sure. They don't hit there a ton. That's why you got to draft them. Draft and develop. And again, going back into giving up a bunch of picks, use your draft picks on the premium positions. That way they're cost controlled. You get value for those positions until you need to give them a second contract. Falcons haven't been able to do that recently because they weren't using them on premium positions, but that has changed. Let's see here. Robbie, let me check here. I missed this. I didn't see it come in here. Apologies. Thank you. I hadn't checked. I get a number that says how many supers come in. And I didn't see it go from 6 to 7. He says, do you have confidence Penix can last a full season? No, I don't. But I feel that way about really anybody in this game. Again, I don't think anybody's. I don't have a confidence that anybody's playing 17 games anymore. I just don't. They will. People will. But and they want to go to 18 games. It's just a brutal game, and they need more time off. They need more rotations. I'd like to see bigger rosters and more rotations. If a player needs to take a week off, he needs to take a week off. If I've got better depth and talent, the practice squads have been a step in that direction. But if I've got more players, I can be more cognizant of player safety. The problem is we're talking about, physically speaking, we're talking about elite level human beings. I mean, cornerbacks are some of the most elite. I think they're the most athletic people on the planet are NFL cornerbacks, and maybe like small forwards in the NBA. How many 6'6", 320-pound guys out there at offensive tackle that can move like a starting offensive tackle in the NFL? Not many. 20. Not many. So that's the problem with that. But do I have confidence that Penix can last a full season? Without a season-ending injury, yes. Is he going to get beat up some? Yeah, he is. Is that going to break him? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's why going into the draft he was considered second round, not because of the arm. The arm, he's got a first round plus left arm, but because of the injury history. And then it's easy to fall in love with the traits. It's easy to fall in love with that arm. It really is. I mean, he ran a 4.48 and he's throwing the ball a million miles an hour, and he led the college football in touchdowns and yards. Wow. Yeah, but about those injuries, he's been healthy for 2 years. He's fine. Maybe. It's a risk. It's a big risk for sure. Unfortunately, when the Falcons play against the odds, they don't win very often. That's been one of the problems for this team. Let's see here. Let me go through here to the next hire. Is Summerall the guy talking about Auburn? Well, hit me up in the comments if you want to talk about Auburn. There's not enough Auburn fans in here to take up that time. So I think that about does it. I think we're going to get out of here. I want to say thanks again to our members, our new members. Nick, thank you so much. Nick B. Jerkley. I love that name. Little Falcon Boy, 2 of our new members. Also, if you haven't signed up, go ahead and register for our newsletter that we have. I'm dropping it in the chat right now. We've got a newsletter on SI right now. And it's sharp. I signed up just to check. I see it all anyway. But I signed up just to make sure to see what it looked like, and it's delivered in the mornings, and it looks good. It's sharp, so you won't regret it on that. But that's all I got for you today. We're gonna get out of here. That's just a little after we went a little bit over an hour. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll see what kind of news comes out of the next 2 days, and hopefully Drake London. I'm not really expecting Drake London back with a strained PCL. I'm not expecting him back this week either. So hopefully some of these wide receivers will step up and you don't necessarily have to go 13 as much as you'd like. And hopefully Darnell Mooney is back. That would be a big boost for this team. The Buccaneers have lost 3 in a row, but you've got the tiebreaker against both the Panthers and the Saints. So you're basically 3 games back with 6 to play, and they haven't played each other yet. But it's a hell of a lot more fun having a podcast talking about a win than a loss. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your still gorgeous spring weather in November. We will see y'all on Wednesday.